Okay, boys and girls, so today we're going to read chapter 11, and today I'm asking you to identify, my dog, figurative language. So it could be any of the things that I have listed, or maybe you find something else. It could be simile, metaphor, personification, onomatopoeia, alliteration, any of those, imagery, idiom. Maybe there's something that you pick up, and I think I asked you for 3, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me. Okay, so find some good figurative language. Okay, all right, here we go. Chapter 11. This is pretty short. We made a bare beginning that first afternoon. The doctor watered the boys and said that the measles cases could handle fried chicken. They were easy to locate because of the scabs. So if you've ever seen anybody with like chicken pox, measles kind of looks like that. They get the red dots and then as they heal, the blisters turn into scabs. So that's how he's saying you can identify the patients. I'll say this for Delphine. Once she turned back her sleeves, she went to work. She'd never worked that hard before, and I can witness that she never worked that hard again. But when she set her mind to something or lapsed into French, you just as well get out of her road. In other words, let her go. Don't get in her way. She left Noah to me, and I wondered if it was modesty. In other words, was she like a little embarrassed? Or did she think maybe Noah was embarrassed? I had to get him out of that underwear he had on. The suit of underwear could just about stand up by itself. Delphine gave Noah a wide berth and ministered to the others, meaning she respected his space, like she made sure to steer clear to not embarrass him. When we had to leave, I turned away to give her a moment with him, if she wanted it. He wasn't clean enough to kiss, not to mention the witnesses. But she didn't tarry, so I couldn't tell if she loved my brother or not. She drew down her veils as we slogged out of the tent. I'd have thrown my boots away if I'd had another pair. Like, that's pretty bad if you want to throw your shoes away. So is there like a little budding romance here? There was a little clue to the future in here, so I wonder. That is something to definitely notice and definitely wonder about. On our way back to the summer kitchen, I wouldn't have minded riding up beside Dr. Hutchings for the pleasure of his company, but I made sure Delphine rode up there by him instead. He needed a little starch in his spine, and she was the one to put it there. So someone says, if you need to get a backbone, that means that you need to be able to stand up. What would happen to you physically if you didn't have a spine? It's basically what holds your whole body erect. So if you don't have one, it means that you're not very sturdy. You're not good at making decisions. You can't stand up for yourself, okay? So basically, starch makes things kind of stiff. Like my husband gets it on his collars to keep his collars nice and stiff and tight so they don't wrinkle. Okay? Sure enough, she lectured him at length about the passes we'd need every day now. There was a nip in the evening air, so she spoke out about blankets for the boys. We didn't have quilts enough for all. When the doctor said he lacked the authority to requisition or ask for blankets, Delphine told him to find the authority double quick, and she didn't want to have to mention it again. She's very bold, Delphine. She'd been shook by what she'd seen of an army hospital, and instead of calling for her smelling salts, she got her dander up. In other words, that's like an expression. Did you ever see, like, if a dog gets angry and the hair goes up on its back? That's basically what she's saying. She's angry. She's got the hair up on her back, so to speak. I was just behind them in the trap, taking in every word. Seemed to me that when it came time to marry, Dr. Hutchings would need a wife with a lighter touch than Delphine's. He looked pretty well whipsawed when he lifted us down at the back of Mrs. Hanrahan's place. He's very taken aback by her. We lived in her summer kitchen throughout our time at Cairo. The widow Hanrahan wanted $7 a week from us, and she wanted it up front. She sent her handyman down to collect our rent that first evening. $7. There were houses all over Grand Tower you could buy outright for $7, and they'd throw in fencing and dig you a well. But then Mrs. Hanrahan was a rich woman, and the rich didn't get that way by giving you a bargain. First of all, $7 for a house. Tuck that away. $7 for a house. As we kept being told, we were lucky to have a roof over us. I, for one, had never lived in such luxury as the summer kitchen had in all the city conveniences. The pump was just to one side of the porch and the privy just to the rear. The big iron stove inside heated water for our laundry and washing ourselves. It took the chill off the evenings, and I was to fry up a deal of chicken throughout many a night. Once we got Dr. Hutchings to requisition the chickens and the stove wood. So she's never had anything like this before. They just had their fireplace. Remember, they didn't even have lamps in their house. The beds were draped with mosquito bars and were comfortable enough if you were as tired as every night as we were. And beneath them, a chamber pot apiece, china ones. Do you know what a chamber pot is? I'm not going to tell you. I'd like you to look it up. But you might be able to imagine something also that Tilly did not have in Grand Tower. Not something she is accustomed to. I'm sure Jack knows what a chamber pot is. He's our history guy. I was more dead than alive when we got back that first night, but Delphine had to unpack all her dresses, shake them out, and hang them around the room. She had brought her gold hand mirror with the violets on the back, and the portrait of her papa in its gilt frame, the yellow-haired Monsieur Jules Deval. She hung him above her cot, for she went nowhere without him. Mrs. Hanrahan didn't see fit to pay us a call in our early days there. She was a busy woman, according to Dr. Hutchings. Rich Cairo people in big houses took in sick officers to nurse them. So, in addition to Dr. Hutchings, she had 3 or 4 ailing officers in her spare rooms. One of them was from U.S. Grant's personal staff. These individuals lolled in starched sheets, seen to by servants, while the regular soldiers slept on the cold ground in their filth. So when she says starched sheets, meaning that they've been laundered and pressed and they're nice and crisp. Isn't it kind of nice when you get into your bed and the sheets are all nice and smoothed out and not wrinkly? And so she's making a very stark comparison. So these officers have these beautifully made, lovely sheets and are being cared for by servants, where the conditions that she found her brother in, he was sick and he was the nurse and he was literally standing in his own filth. Okay? But then if there were justice in this world, you wouldn't look for it in Cairo. And if you ask me, some of them officers were none too poorly. They sat out on the gallery of an evening, smoking their El Sol cigars and drinking from silver cups, and I doubt if it was medicine. Interesting. Quite a contrast. Our days at Camp Defiance overlap in my mind, but each day Noah was stronger. So, you know how she says that each day overlaps? Some of us have talked, and it's kind of how it's felt like since we left school, where one day just sort of seems to run into another. It's like just been one long day, and you don't really know where one day ends and one day begins, and did this happen on Monday or did that happen on Thursday? So she's been busy and life is different. So it's all running together. It's all overlapping, like what's happening to us. We've talked about that, some of us, right? Noah was stronger, tottering, then helping out, then growing restless. We wanted to get them all on their feet, at least well enough to carry their own slops and feed themselves. We only lost one, a boy from up around Belleville, and he was too far gone when we got there. He starved to death because he couldn't keep anything down. Delphine spoiled 2 of her dresses trying to feed him. You wouldn't have known her. When he died in her arms, she closed his eyes and folded his hands on his poor shrunken chest and looked away with her mouth pulled in a straight line. I can't tell you more about it. I can't bear to bring it back. Seeing her lovely face floating over them may have pulled several through, but you couldn't call her an angel of mercy. When some of the boys lacked the spirit to eat or stir themselves, she was apt to say, "You will need all your strength when you come against the Confederates." Because what is she? She's from New Orleans. She's from Louisiana. So she's you fill in the blanks. They are a real army. They rarely sicken and never retreat. Interesting that she says that, yet she's still helping them. I wonder why. So I suppose her greatest achievement was that she wasn't shot as a traitor. As they improved, they wanted to know our names, especially hers, but I was popular too because I was Noah Pruitt's sister. His Company C was made up mostly of Jackson County boys, and they told us of home, of sisters, and sweethearts, and the tears flowed. We got our boys well enough and fed to where they could shovel out the tent down to dry ground. That was after we found out where the army hid its shovels. We made a bonfire of the straw they'd slept on. Once we found fresh straw, I boiled their long-handled underwear over an open fire, and that underwear teemed and swarmed with living things that glistened and crawled. I itch to think of it now. That is probably one of the nastiest things I've ever read in my whole entire life. Could you imagine that? Picture that in your mind. Oh my gosh. No able-bodied loafer outside our tent was safe from us. We had jobs for each and all, sending them for kindling and straw and whatever they could find. We put them to work, and anybody not skinning could hold a leg, as the saying went. We got some loafer to find us a bunch of them big nail kegs. You could saw them in 2 and caulk them, and then the boys could take baths in them. So they're like barrels. I don't know how else to describe it, a great big barrel. Of course, they wouldn't strip naked until the sunset gun had seen Delphine and me off the post. So even though they'd seen them at their worst, the girls had seen the boys at their worst, they still were quite modest and embarrassed. So they would not bathe until the sunset gun went off. That meant the sun was going down and the girls had to leave. We got our boys clean and stretched out on fresh, sweet straw. We dosed them with our cures and cooked their rations for them. We made a believer out of Dr. Hutchins that no army doctor come around to put a stop to us. We sang some, too, because the boys liked it. Delphine could offer up a rendition of My Old Kentucky Home, flavored in her French, that brought a lump to many, a Yankee throat. Confederate girl singing Southern songs that was so lovely that even the Yankee or Union soldiers would be moved to tears. And we sang a song the whole country was singing that fall of 1861, though I thought it must have been expressly for me. Brother, tell me of the battle, how the soldiers fought and fell. Tell me of the weary marches, she who loves will listen well. Brother, draw thee close beside me, lay your head upon my breast. While you're telling of the battle, let your fevered forehead rest. We slept fast and deep through the brief nights and hardly had the time to look up from our days or to notice that we were girls anymore. All around us, the camp girded for war on the river. Black Jack Logan, who commanded the 31st, spoke of hewing their way to the Gulf with their swords. The Gulf of... Colonel White came to our tent to see who was fit enough to train. and took Noah away. Back he hobbled in a pair of stiff new boots, carrying an ancient Belgian musket he said hadn't been fired since Napoleon's day. The sabers rattled around us. The Confederate general, Leonidas Polk, held the Mississippi not 20 miles south of Cairo. His rebs were dug in on both sides of the river at Columbus, Kentucky, and at the steamboat landing of Belmont, Missouri. U.S. Grant was expected to move downriver and make a demonstration against the Reb positions any minute now. So Reb is short for rebels. Remember, the South seceded, so the Union saw them as rebellious. Then one day they issued Noah his full uniform. It was so shoddy that Delphine said it would melt in the first rain, and it was so big on him he looked like the little ear of corn in too many husks. But he was ready to fight now, and I braced myself for the attack. So I want you to think back to the Boys' War, and some of you still have that book. I want you to look at, I can't remember the page number. I'll go grab my book and I'll get a picture of it, of what the boys standing in their uniforms look like. Okay? Think about that. Get a good image of what Noah looked like getting ready to go fight. It come quicker than I thought, quicker than a striking snake when you least look for it. And that attack came not at the camp, nor in the river. It come to the summer kitchen. Okay, so on Thursday, maybe we will try to meet again for chapter 12. It's not that long either. The chapters are getting shorter now. So go ahead and do your activities in class notebook, and I will talk to you soon. Don't forget, look for that picture in the Boys' War. And also, I think it was chapter 9, on my video, I put a map of Cairo. Take a look at that. Miss you.